ways of doing it. We have our point slope formula, and some people like to do it as just y equals mx plus b. Again, I do not tell you which way to find the equation of a line. You got to do whatever jives best in your brain. Okay? I certainly have my preference to be this, but I understand that a lot of people learned it this way, and therefore this is what you like to stick to. Okay? So, what I would like to do is practice finding an equation of a line or two before we continue finding equations of more lines, but of different types of scenarios. Okay? So, what if I want us to find the equation, remember EQN is equation, of the line passing through, who cares, negative 3, 4, and 5, negative 2. Now, upon first glance at this, you might be feeling like, wait a minute. When we find the equation of a line, we need a point and a slope. We're not given a point and a slope here, are we? We have 2 points. But, given 2 points, what can we find? The slope. So let's do it. The slope is the change in y values over the change in x values. Guys with me this far? Cool. What's negative 2 minus 4? Negative 6. What's 5 minus a negative 3? 8. I would rewrite that as negative 2/3. Oh, excuse me. I would not rewrite that as negative 2/3. I would rewrite that as negative 3/4. Because I like my fractions simplified. Guys with me? Oh no, these are equivalent fractions. No, that's a great question, right? Because if you write negative 6 over 8, isn't that negative 3 times 2 over 4 times 2, and then your 2's cancel, so you get negative 3/4. No, because if you go down 6 and over 8, you've just gone a step. You've gone essentially 2 jumps as opposed to just 1 jump. Yes. It's a lovely question. All right. First question for you. Should you freak out because you got fractions? No. So, now that we have slope and we have 2 points, we can find the equation of a line. How about we use y equals mx plus b just to be different? Okay? So, in fact, if you want, I can show you it using both ways and show you that we get to the exact same place. Now, first comment to make, it doesn't matter which ordered pair you use. Okay? No matter which ordered pair you use, you're going to get the same equation of the line. So, which do you want to use? Negative 3/4 or 5, negative 2? Negative 3/4 it is. So, my y value is 4. What did we find our x value to, or excuse me, what did we find our m to be? Negative 3/4. Okay, what's my corresponding x value? Negative 3 plus b. Right, you plug in your ordered pair, your x and your y value, and your m value. If you have a question, just yell out. All right, ready? Multiply 2 fractions. Negative times negative is positive. Do you guys agree we get 9/4 plus b? Right, when you multiply 2 fractions, I'll refresh your memories now, but I'm not going to keep doing it. You multiply your numerators and you multiply your denominators. Or you can simplify first and then do such. All right, we need to get b. How do we get b by its lonesome? Don't we subtract 9/4 from both sides? All right, you guys, we have 4 minus 9/4. In order to add or subtract 2 fractions, what do you need? You need a common denominator. What's my common denominator? 4. The only one we got. So, if you want, I'm showing you every step. If you want to rewrite 4 with a denominator of 4, well, how do you get from 1 to 4? You multiply by 4. Fractions are like children. Whatever you do to one, you got to do to the other. So if I'm going to multiply my denominator by 4, fair is fair. I got to multiply my numerator by 4. So I'm looking at 16/4 minus 9/4, aka 7/4. Okay? Now, are we done? No, we got to write the equation of the line. So we have y is m, which is negative 3/4, x plus b, which is 7/4. Isn't that cute? Your yes is deafening. All right, do you want to see it using the y minus y1, Diddy? Okay, we'll still use the same ordered pair. You take y minus your y value, which is 4, equals m times x minus my x value. I'm using the same ordered pair, just because. Okay? Now again, you guys, you don't have to do it both ways, but I like to show you both ways so you can pick whichever one jives better with you. Okay? The first thing that I would do here is say, well, minus a negative is the same as plus a positive. You with me there? All right, what's my next step? Distribute. Good. So don't we have y minus 4? Well, negative 3/4 times x is negative 3/4 x. And what's negative 3/4 times 3? Well, that's minus 9/4. You with me there? Last but not least, we will add 4 to both sides. And I know 4 is 16/4. So lo and behold, you get negative 3/4 x plus 7/4. You guys, I mean, math is beautiful for so many different reasons, but check it out. You go one way, I go the other way, and we meet in the same place. That's awesome. You can write your fractions as decimals if you want to. I'm a fraction type of gal, but totally, it's not incorrect. All right, now let me show you guys why I like this way better than the other way, or let me tell you. Because once we went through and did all the razzmatazz, didn't we have the equation of our line here? Yeah. Here, when you use the y equals mx plus b, I can kind of space out sometimes. You go through the razzmatazz and we got b to be 7/4, and I'd be like, okay, I solved it. And I'd forget to write my line. Okay? It's just because sometimes I have my moments. Therefore, if you remember to write your line, it doesn't matter which way you go. You got it? All right. Now, again, if fractions are funky to you, or any of this algebra stuff is funky for you, this is good stuff to review over break. Okay? All right. Now, what I would like to do is this. Suppose I have, I don't know, how about 3x plus 2y equals 12. And I want you to tell me, I want us to find the slope and the y-intercept of this line. Are there a lot of computations that one needs to do in order to find the slope and the y-intercept when you're actually given an equation of the line? No. Okay? The quickest way to do this is to solve it for y. Because remember, once you have it solved for y, the number in front of your x is your slope, and the number out here is your y-intercept. Okay? So, if you're given something like this and all you're asked to do is find the slope and the y-intercept, you just get y all by its lonesome. So let's do it. What would be our first step? You'd subtract 3x from both sides. So do you agree you have 2y is negative 3x plus 12? What would be our next step? Divide everybody by 2. Do you agree you have negative 3 halves x plus 6? Questions this far? So, what's my slope? Negative 3 halves. And what's my y-intercept? 6. Guys with me? Should we graph him just in front of it? Cool. Okay? And then what we'll do is we're going to talk about horizontal vertical lines, parallel perpendicular lines, and then we'll end class today with horizontal. All right. So, how do you graph a line? Well, when you're in this form, I will tell you, start here. You always start with your constant, okay? Your y-intercept. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Guys with me there? What does the slope of negative 3 halves tell me? Well, remember, your slope is rise over run. What does it mean to rise a negative number? You go down. So what we do is we start here, we go down 3, so 1, 2, 3, and then over 2, and then we play connect the dots. So there was a question, is there ever a scenario where you run backwards? Well, couldn't I have written this as 3 over negative 2? So wouldn't that tell me go up 3 and then run 2 to the left? But look, we're in the same place. All right, guys ready? Let's do this. What if I want us to find the equation of the line with a slope of 0, and how about he's passing through the ordered pair 1, 2? Okay, you guys, a slope equal to 0 is sure catching my eye. I know it's going through the point 1, 2. What does it mean to have a slope equal to 0? What kind of line is that? It's a horizontal line. I mean, just think about it. If you're walking on something with no slope, isn't it totally flat? Okay? We went through this on Monday. There we are. Okay. Well, which way do you want to find the equation of the line? Y equals mx plus b, or y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1? Point slope. Okay, so we have y minus my y value. Hey, if you're the y equals mx plus b type, you know what? You can ignore me right now. Use y equals mx plus b. We'll meet in the same place. So y minus 2 is m, which is 0, times x minus 1. Guys with me there? Great. What do I get on my right side when I distribute my 0? 0. So what's the equation of my line? Y equals 2. Isn't that a funny equation? Yeah, but it actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, let's just look at our line. Our x values are changing like crazy, but isn't y constantly 2 here? So, we can make a general statement from that. We can say the following. In general, the equation of any horizontal undefined slope passing through 1, 2. All right. Well, we know what this would look like graphically, don't we? It goes through 1, 2. What does it mean to have an undefined slope? It's a vertical line. So we know what this looks like. Let's use our point slope formula. You ready? Well, what would we have? Y minus our y value, so y minus 2 is m. What is my m? Undefined times x minus 1. Guys with me this far? All right, so on our left we have y minus 2. But what do we have on our right side? I mean, how do you distribute undefined? I mean, you could write it as like undefined x minus undefined, right? But, right? What do we do here? I mean, this is a legitimate line. We should be able to find an equation, but do you see how we kind of ran into a fence post here? Yeah. So, math is like life. Whenever you encounter something new, you ask yourself, what did we do in a similar situation that we already did know how to tackle? Okay? And I claim a very similar situation to a vertical line is a horizontal line. So let's go back and look at our horizontal line again. Again, my x values here are changing like crazy, but wasn't y always equal to 2? Okay, now let's talk about this line. This line, aren't my y values changing like crazy? But what is always the case here? X is always 1. Therefore, I will make my general statement here that the equation of any vertical line passing through the ordered pair AB is always just x equals whatever your x value is. You guys with me? Do you guys remember this? Or not if you can help it? All right. So, look at these lines. They're parallel. Parallel lines never meet. They occur in different places in space, but I claim they do have something in common. What do they have in common? The slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. So if you know the slope of your line, you know the slope of every single line that's parallel to it, right? Your rise over run is the same. You guys with me there? Okay? Now, these lines are not parallel because they intersect. These lines are perpendicular lines. Now, just because two lines intersect does not mean that they are necessarily perpendicular. Perpendicular lines are ones that intersect at a 90-degree angle. Okay? So, clearly these do not have the same slope because the slope of this line is positive and the slope of this line is negative. Okay? It turns out, formally, that perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals of each other. Now, for many people, opposite reciprocal is a mouthful, okay? So, let me give you the pragmatic way of looking at it. If you have the slope of a line to find the slope of the line perpendicular to it, the first thing you do is you change the sign. That's what opposite means. And reciprocal then means flip it. It's not a mathematically precise way of putting it, but it works. Let me show you some examples. It's going to stink up here. So, suppose I have a line that has a slope equal to -3/7. Well, in order to find the slope of a line perpendicular to it, this symbol means perpendicular. Don't worry about that, but okay? First thing I do is I change the sign. So don't you agree that this line will have a positive slope? Yeah. And then I flip this guy. What do you get when you flip 3/7? 7/3. What a thrill. What if my line has a slope equal to 5? What's the slope of the line perpendicular to it? Negative what? 1/5. Remember, if you just have a whole number, by default it's over 1. Guys with me there? All right, so let's play with an example. What if I want you to find the equation of the line passing through, how about 2, -3, that is perpendicular to the line. Give me 1 second here. Don't write this down yet. Yep, now you can write it down. Okay, so what we're wanting to do is we want to find the equation of this line. We know that it is passing through the point 2, -3. And we're also given that the line that we're looking for is perpendicular to this line. Okay? You guys with me? So, in order to find the equation of a line, we need a point and a slope. We most certainly have a point. Yes? Okay? Now, we're not directly given a slope. However, will you guys grant me that if I figure out what the slope of this line is, I can then find the slope of the line I'm looking for? Okay? So, let's first find the slope of this line. This harkens back to an example I did just a little while ago. What is the easiest way to find the slope of a line when it's written like this? Solve it for y. Okay? So, if I solve this for y, do you agree I have 9y is -4x plus 11? Guys with me this far? All right, we divide everybody by 9. So I get y is -4/9x plus 11/9. I'll grant you it's not very pretty, but don't worry, I made the numbers nice enough that our answer. Okay? So, we just found that the slope of this line is -4/9. Do you all agree? Therefore, what is the slope of the line that we're looking for? Positive 9/4. Are there any questions how I got that? Cool. And it's passing through the point 2, -3. Can we find our equation now? You bet we can. Okay? I'm going to use the point slope formula, the whole y minus y one ditty. If you guys prefer the y equals mx plus b, ignore me for now. Okay? Do it using the y equals mx plus b way, and we'll get to the same place. You ready? So it's y minus my y value. So y minus -3 is m, which we found to be 9/4, times x minus our x value. You guys with me this far? All right, minus the negative is plus a positive. You ready? 9/4 times x is 9/4. All right, we have 9/4 times a negative 2. Yes, you could multiply your numerators and denominators and say it's 18/4, but I prefer to simplify things prior, so I get minus 9/2. Y'all agree 18/4 is equivalent to 9/2. Cool. We're almost there. I need to get y up all by its lumsum, so don't we subtract 3 from both sides? Well, I've got to do negative 9/2 minus 3. What do you need, you guys? You need a common denominator. Do you guys agree 3 is the same as 6/2? What's negative 9/2 minus 6/2? Minus 15/2. So we're going to get y is 9/4 x minus 15/2. And yes, if you want to write that as a decimal, go for it. Did anyone do their y equals mx plus b way? Me either. Any questions here? Do you guys remember this stuff from way back when? What's your question? Oh, okay. You looked up and did. Does anyone have a question?
Yeah, actually, I got negative 1.
You got negative 1/2. Where?
Instead of negative 15.
Okay. So do you agree that 9/4 times 2 is 9/2? Yeah, are you sure? No. Okay, I got it. You got 9/4 times 2. You guys ask me these questions, because now I'll go through it, but in a couple weeks I won't. Isn't that the same thing as 9/4 times 2/1? Okay? Do you agree when you multiply two fractions, you multiply your numerators and you multiply your denominators? If you didn't before, you do now. A over b times c over d is equal to a times c over b times d. Okay? So, do you agree I have 18/4? Okay? Now, I can simplify this because 18 is 9 times 2 and 4 is 2 times 2. Conk! 9/2. Does that help?
Yes.
Cool. I love fractions. Not what you asked. Okay, you guys ready? Let's do a word problem. This is a really cute word problem because it's about blue whales. Okay. So, if you have your book and don't want to write more than you need to, I'm in section 1.2 and I'm doing number 78. I will tell you that section 1.3 is all word problems, and that's what we're going to be playing with on Friday. Okay? But they're a specific type. This is such a cute little example. The equation W equals 3.51L minus 192 expresses the relationship between the length, L, in feet, and the expected weight, W, and that's given in terms of British tons, of adult blue whales. And this equation was adopted in the late 1960s by the International Whaling Commission. All right, this is a line. Yes, instead of an X, we have an L, and instead of a Y, we have a W. But will you guys grant me that intuitively it makes sense that the weight really of a whale or a person, whatever you're talking about, or a kitty cat, should be dependent upon the length? Yeah. Okay? So, this definitely makes sense. You're given this equation. So, I want to ask us two questions. What is the expected, I might ask us three questions. What is the, I thought of a good one, expected weight of an 80-foot blue whale? All right. Are you guys ready? What are we looking for? We're looking for the expected weight, aren't we? We're looking for W. If we're looking for W, do y'all agree we better be given L? Yes. And are we? Yes. So isn't W equal to 3.51 times 80 minus 192? And in case you care, this blue whale is going to weigh 88.8 British tons. Questions on that, guys? All right, how about this? What would be the length of a blue whale weighing 100 British tons? All right, now what are we looking for? We're looking for L, the length. Okay? Therefore, since there's two unknowns, we better be given our other one. Aren't we given that W is 100 and we're looking for L? Now I'm doing this just to be sure your algebra is all fine and dandy. And then there's one more part to this problem. Can we solve this? Totally. What's our first step? Wouldn't you add this to both sides? We want to isolate our L, correct? So first you get rid of whatever you're adding or subtracting. So we would add 192 to both sides. So don't we have 292 is 3.51 L? How do you undo multiplication? Division. So you would take 292 divided by 3.51, and we're going to get about 83.2. How's that? You okay? All right, one more part to this problem. And this is kind of getting us into the way we're going to be looking at these lines soon enough. What if I wanted us to interpret our slope? What is our slope, first and foremost? 3.51. You guys, we know our slope is the number in front of the variable, isn't it? Okay? So, what I want to know, and at least get you guys starting to think about, is what the slope actually means in the context of any word problem. Okay? All right, so remember, your slope is a rate of change, isn't it? Okay, remember, your slope is a rate of change. It's the change in the y values over the change in the x values. Why am I going through that? Well, because I want to talk about my units. I need to know what my units are if I'm interpreting this. And if this is the first time you've ever done something like this, don't stress about it. You'll get plenty of practice, okay? So, what are the of my Y or W value? Tons. You agree? What are the units of my X value, aka my L? So, at this point, I'm now going to say it's 3.51 tons per foot. So, what I would say here, if I wanted to write this out in sentence form, do you guys agree for each additional foot, the weight increases? I know it increases because my slope is positive by 3.51 tons. Do you guys see how I got that? Okay, because what does it mean to look at a slope? I mean, you're looking at the rate of change. In other words, if you have 3.51 as your slope, it's 3.51 over 1. In other words, for each additional foot, the weight increases by 3.51 tons. Okay? You don't have to do this